Oh, this is Mike Farley. We're talking luxury outdoor living today, and we've got a great guest coming with us. John has a deck company in Atlanta, Georgia, and the decks that he does go way beyond anything I ever did. And I did some deck work when I was in Northern California because we had a lot of redwood there. But you know, the stuff that he's doing is all over the place with all kinds of exotic woods, and
they're doing pools and outdoor livings as well. And
so, yeah, the company has evolved from just decks to everything from a luxury outdoor living environment. So he fits right in with what we're covering on the podcast.
Perfect.
Well, so did you have a good week?
I had an amazing week. Sports have been rough lately, though. So Texas lost, and I didn't watch the national championship because obviously the national championship was Ohio State versus Texas. We'll see, but either way, I'm really excited for this conversation. So let's get into it.
So John Lea is a highly regarded licensed general contractor based in Atlanta, Georgia, with a remarkable career spanning over 2 decades. Since 1998, he's been in the foremost of designing and building elegant outdoor living spaces and transforming ordinary yards into stunning retreats. With an unwavering commitment to excellence, John's expertise extends to crafting comprehensive outdoor environments encompassing everything from luxury pools to inviting decks, cozy porches, versatile patios, and fully equipped outdoor kitchens. His visionary approach to the outdoor living design and construction has left an enduring mark on more than 2,000 properties through the Southeast. In addition to his outstanding contributions to the construction industry, John is recognized for his dedication to the professional development and industry advocacy. He proudly serves as the ambassador board of North American Deck and Railing Association, where his insight and leadership continue to help shape the industry. John's passion for creating outdoor living spaces that seamlessly blend functionally, form, and aesthetics has earned him a well-deserved reputation as a trusted expert in the industry. He resides in the metro Atlanta with his wife and 4 children. Look forward to talking to John. Well, thank you for being here today. And John, that's quite the bio that you have that we went through. So you've been doing this a while.
I think my office manager ran that through Chat GPT. I'm not sure. So it had some words in it that I had to look up. So so 26 years, there's a lot against the wall, right? Some of it sticks, some of it doesn't.
Yeah. So give us it's always an interesting story on finding out how people ended up where they are now. So how did that go about you getting into the construction industry?
Yeah, great question, Mike. So, as a kid, I was always curious. I grew up kind of like a puppy dog, following my grandfather around his cabinet shop, workshop. And so always had an affinity towards things of carpentry and craftsmanship and wood and so forth. And I wasn't the greatest student. I just kind of grinded it out. And so after school, I landed a job with a builder doing his punch out, his lockouts, building little stoops to get into the garage and things like that. The Olympics had just happened in Atlanta, so I came back to Atlanta, and I started working for a deck company that was out of the Northeast, and they were opening up multiple locations. And so I helped them open up their Atlanta shop and their Charlotte shop. And so I got some really good experience under someone else's dime, if you will, kind of trial by fire, managing teams of men that were older than me. And so learned from my mistakes, had no idea, thought I was going to stick with it, had no idea it was a sinking ship. And so when that came to light, that's when I started DeckSouth. I'd like to say it was some burning bush epiphany, but it was just like, man, I got some bills to pay. I got to get after it. But my whole life I was, building tree stands, building lofts in college. In high school, I had my own landscaping company where I cut very small time stuff, but learned the value of a dollar early on from the age of 12 on, of what that looked like. And so probably was always destined to be my own boss because I was not a very good employee. Yeah, I don't think that was my strong suit ever. So yeah, that's kind of it in a nutshell about how it kind of came about.
When you first started, did you still have a fairly good sized crew when you started your company, or was it just kind of you doing?
Yeah, no, the whole thing went, yeah, great. So the whole thing went belly up. And so I started DeckSouth. I had one gentleman, Scott Millspaw, that worked with me, and he was on 2 days off 3. He was a fireman. We ran that kind of situation about a year or so. In the evening, I'd stick my head under the hose bib, put a DeckSouth shirt on, go sell. And during the day, swing the hammer. And then I was a whole lot more productive the days that he was with me for sure. And then, gosh, I don't know, about a year and a half into it or so, I hired my first employee, Marcelino Rincon, and he's actually still with me today. And that's when things started to I won't say take off, but certainly started to become more of a business than just a hobby. That's where it all started. Prior to the 2010 recession, we got up there with a bunch of crews, and we've kind of been all over the map over the years. It was a small beginning there at the very start of it.
So today, DeckSouth, tell us kind of briefly, there was some in your bio, but what is y'all's sweet spot? What do you guys like to do besides?
Yeah, so it started in '98 with a deck and deck only, right? We back then a custom deck was getting paraffin wax injected decking, running a Roman OG bit around the edges of the deck, and putting a little piece of 1x4 trim on, putting the decking on the diagonal, and you've got a custom deck. It was the delta between a standard deck and a custom deck back then was very tight. Today it's a whole new ballgame, right? So we started out with the name DeckSouth, one deck at a time, and that's how we served our clients. In the mid 05, 06, somewhere in there, 07, we started to do wall work, patio work. It was just a natural migration. The housing market in Atlanta, 85, 88%, something like that, of the homes have a basement walkout, a walkout basement lot, right? So
okay.
You walk out the kitchen door and you're 10 feet down. So for us, building a deck was kind of the hub of it all. You exited the house and it was the hub of the backyard. And so tear down into a patio. So as things evolved over the years, we just started to offer our clients more and more services in the backyard. And today we like to say we build beautiful backyards. We got into building pools back in 2018. And it was an opportunity for us to own the backyard and turn it back over to the client without there being all those, oops, I thought he was going to do the drainage. Oh, I didn't know the gas line was there. Oops, all those things that just don't service the client well.
Right.
And over the years, we had worked with a ton of pool companies in Georgia, a ton of different companies that would bring us in or we would work in tandem with. And as 2017, 2018 approached, we realized that if we were able to take that backyard, own it, so to speak, and return it back to the client, completed with the concept that we built for them in the design phase, then we felt like we were servicing them the best way we could. And so that's where we are now. Some 6-7 years later, that's still where we hover. We can still build a single deck as good as anybody out there. That's just not necessarily what we do on a day-to-day basis. Our projects entail a deck, a porch, a patio, outdoor kitchen, louvered pergola, wall work, pool, the full backyard, outdoor living, if you will. You know that well.
Yeah. So the process starts, how do you typically, you're not drawing something on the back of a, 8.5 by 11 tablet to create that backyard like you did probably long ago, I would guess. So how does someone start a process of creating a luxury outdoor living space?
Yeah. So for us, it starts with what I call a brain dump with our client, right? So really getting an idea of what they're looking for now and what they're looking for 3 to 5 years later. Rob Hodacek, our lead designer, he and I sit down, work through a design that we can present to the client that really allows them to hopefully have an emotional buy-in to, that's what I want, that's the path I want to go. Let's figure out how to get there. I've always subscribed to the theory that if we can design it for them, they'll figure out a way to make it happen from a commitment standpoint. Because as you know, these projects aren't cheap, and they don't take a week. Heck, they don't even take a month, right? So there's a lot of buy-in from the family to really make these things happen. So my initial call, if I'm in the backyard, I do some hand sketches that are just for me, talk through with the client what they're looking to do, and then we return with a full-blown design. And that's kind of where all the fun starts to happen, if you will, in my mind, when they start to see it come together. We use SketchUp. We render it in a few different softwares. Lumien's a favorite, V-Ray's another one, but it all starts in SketchUp.
So you can really give them a really good feel for the space. So based on what you're speaking about, there's got to be quite a bit of elevation change in a typical backyard than in Atlanta. If you got a walkout basement, I mean, that's at least 10 feet. So,
it is.
So, I mean, I saw some of the stuff on your website. It's a lot more than 10 feet in some cases. So
we're on one right now that's a 42-foot drop between the footing of our lower wall to the kitchen door. So yeah, we have challenging slopes, which obviously creates opportunity for us to do something special for the client, right? So I like to. Today's different than it used to be. Water lines, water levels, and all that back in the day. Now, we can use a product called Moser. Where I can walk around the backyard and get elevations. We use hover, so when I meet with a client, I can take specific photos that go in the cloud, and then their proprietary process sends us back 29 pages of measurements for the entire house. Why that's important for us is it creates a digital file of the home. We can pull it into SketchUp. We can design the project in the backyard, side yard, wherever, all the way around. And it's the actual house, right? It used to take Rob as long to build the house in our designs as sometimes it does to do the actual design. So anyway, we try to implement current technology, right? Hover, Moser, design in SketchUp. It's a long way away from where it all started. I mean, it started with a piece of vellum and a scale and, pencil and if you squint, it's kind of in 3D, I mean, like, everything was right here, there was no technology like we can present to the client today. So whole new approach.
All right. So
we're going to take a break here for a second and get into outdoor living. So with outdoor living, we like to go to barbecue bits here. We're going to share some information of everything that you may want to consider in your outdoor living space as far as features, especially for the kitchen. Hope you enjoy this.
All right, so here's another type of griddle. Bobby, tell us about this one.
So let's go back to the conversation we had on the Evo where we talked about let's go through discovery phase with the customer and find out if we're going to do a connection piece to that unit, or is this going to be in the inline bar where the cooking equipment is. So this is more of the inline bar that's going to have the grill or the cooking center. This is a special griddle. Why is it special? Well, it's made in Texas. We like that. It was from France last year. They moved the facility down in South Texas. And what makes this griddle special? You can get it any fuel source. It also comes in electric. So the 2-zone comes in electric. Let me give the zone 1. You've got a 2-zone, and they make a 3-zone. Also, it's all stainless steel, 304 stainless, as you'd seen in our other casts. What's 304 stainless? It has a high quality of chromium and nickel in it, will not pit or rust. But what is the secret ingredient to this griddle? It's a dual plate technology. So the bottom of this cast iron is grafted to the stainless steel plate, and the energy off of these U burners create a really, really even surface, and you do not get a carcinogen burn in. Ease of use as far as cleaning, no special oils. If I were to cook on this grill, I would turn it on, hit olive oil, and I'm ready to cook right now.
And that would be different than the Evo?
It is. Evo is going to be, you got to watch heat management with Evo. It's extremely hot. It taps out at about 550, 600 degrees. But you'll find that you will not burn on this particular vehicle versus other griddles. Where's the grease relief at? People are looking at us right now. Hey, where's the grease go? Yeah, well, it goes right into here. I can line this with aluminum foil and then drag the product here. How do I clean it? You get a cleaning, you want to buy a cleaning kit. You got a rigid scraper. You'll turn the unit up high, and then you'll put ice on here. And then ice counteracts with the heat under the plate, and then you just scrape it off, and then you only use a scrubber that's recommended for this. So it's very easy to use.
So what's the dimensions on that?
You can go into this one's 16, this one's 30, and then we're 36 to 37 on the 3 zone.
So for a consumer, ease of use sort of sounds to me like you're saying that one might be easier to maintain and cook on than maybe something like that, which might require a little more skill.
It is in space too. If they want that particular experience, I can go 1 zone dedicated, 2 or 3. These also come with liners. We know that some of our customers like to do nature cast companies or custom cabinetry. You can build this in, and then the griddle sits inside of here. And then this is not a cooking lid down like a grill. This is a steam lid. It does 2 things. It keeps it clean, keeps bird bombs off of it when I'm not using it. But then you'll have a water bottle in here. You'll find out where your temperature is when you hit water with it. When the water begins to bounce, that's your starting point to cook. If I were to put patties on here and flip them and put my cheese, I would hit water over here, squirt water on it, pull it down, and 10 to 15 seconds, quick steam, and the cheese melts without having to melt onto the product here, onto the plate.
So to your point, this works really well in that inline layout. That's kind of like a destination place. Hey, let's go to the teppanyaki grill and cook.
And not to just shine on these 2 products like Evo and Le Griddle. Every company that we've showed you, Alfresco has a 30-inch griddle that component flows with everything that they sell. It just depends on the questions, discovery phase questions. We ask the customer, hey, how do you see entertaining? How do you see cooking? What would you like to learn how to cook? Those type of discovery phase questions will lead us into what type of component we sell.
And don't you guys do something on the weekends here where you're like showcasing cooking on certain things?
We do. We're a big ceramic store. We always have been. You'll see us with the pellet grill in the front. We'll get to that next segment in a little bit. We always cook in front of our store. Do we do samples? No, we just we cook for ourselves, but we also show how the equipment operates live, and that helps vernacular and some of the customers understanding how to do that.
Got it. It's cool.
I'm wondering, because I do want to ask you a certain question before I do that. With DeckSouth, what would you say your bread and butter is now? Because obviously the company's evolved over time.
That's a great question, man. Years ago, we hired a company. I had a customer say, "Hey, why DeckSouth? Why not change the name? And he went through the whole list of things we did for him and his family. I said, yeah, that's a great question. I wonder if it makes sense for us to change our name. I don't know. So we hired a company to come in and do some research. They interviewed, I don't know, I think it was 75 or 80 past clients and went into the marketplace of Atlanta. But they came back and said, there's equity in the name, keep the name. And I said, oh, awesome. Can I get my money back? And they promptly said no. And we moved forward. But, the name stayed the same, Trey, but our bread and butter has changed, right? It used to be just a deck. It grew into our first 6-figure deck was in 2000 and end of 2011, early 2012. When that happened, and I realized, wow, we have clients paying us more than I paid for my first home, and they're paying us, to build decks and porches in their backyard. This is amazing. And it just kind of grew from there, right? And I think it allowed us to show what we're capable of. It allowed future clients to see what's possible, and it just kind of grew from there. So in today's world, our bread and butter, our client that I think we service best is one that needs multiple trades in their backyard to come together and create something special, right? And so we're able to do a pretty darn good job at that, right? Where it's, I had a client recently go, John, I'm wondering if I need to go get a competitive bid, but I don't know who to call. Do I call a wall company, a deck company, a pool company, a kitchen company, a putting green company, a patio company? He goes through the whole thing, and I said, Casey, I don't know, man. I don't know what to tell you there. I don't envy your spot, but we're here if you need us, and we're in the middle of that project. So different day, right? Different day. Our sweet spot, our honey hole would be to service that client that needs more than just a deck, that needs it all to kind of come together and be managed.
Okay. Yeah, it seems like y'all have really good craftsmanship. I do wonder, with luxury outdoor living, just a wood deck is kind of a timeless feature. Why do you think that is? Because you work with them so much.
Yeah, I think it's regional, right? Like, again, where we are, certainly where you guys are, the topography is different, right? So you've got decks that aren't, I mean, if let's face it, if we were in Florida, maybe we were called patio south, not deck south, right? Like the topography is different. So we also are regionally, geographically in the Southeast United States, where a lot of the pressure treated southern yellow pine is harvested. South Georgia, North Florida. So we're in the pressure treated hotbed, if you will. And so it's taken a long time to get clients to think about something different. I know my colleagues up north and even out west had a quicker transition over to composites and even some more alternative frames in the last 5 to 15, 18 years where the industry has changed. It's been a little slower move, I think, historically or traditionally in the Southeast, because there's so much pressure treated pushed onto the marketplace. For us, we don't build decks that are southern yellow pine finished anymore, right? Southern yellow pine still has its place in the market. If it's a wood deck for us, it's going to be an imported lumber like Ipe, Kumru, Jatoba, all the different hardwoods, because for us, you guys know this, and you see it in Texas with the sun and what it does to southern yellow pine. It's not fair to actually tell the client, hey, pay good money for this, and it's going to stand the test of time, because it's not.
Right.
It's just simply not. And so sometimes you lose clients because they say, you don't build a wood deck. We're going to find somebody that does. And I say, I get it. I understand. But you're going to be mad at me if I build you a pressure treated wood deck and a year and a half from now, it looks like it's 5 years old. Right. So,
yeah. So you mentioned a lot of natural imported woods. Do you use a lot of synthetic product as well, or is it mostly, so if a homeowner's, because one of the questions I was curious about is there's got to be pros and cons of different materials that you go through with a homeowner. So do you mind kind of walking through some of that?
Sure, Mike. So, I tell clients, I try to equate it to the automobile industry, and I say this. Up front, you're going to pay more for a synthetic deck product, a man-made deck product. But unlike the original days of composites, the synthetic composites, PVCs, whichever way you go, the man-made deck products now, they have warranty against all the things that wood does: cracking, cupping, warping, twisting, fading, all of that. In the early days, they didn't. I used to show people, composite, and there's like 4 different colors, and I'd be like, go ahead and pick one, but in about 6 months, they're all going to fade to gray anyway. So whichever one you pick, it's just going to be gray. Like, who wants to pay? Where do I sign up for that? Right. So that was a little bit of a harder scenario back then. Today, it's a different animal. So I tell clients this. I compare it to the automobile industry and say, hey, if you went and bought a car and all the maintenance was taken care of, it's going to be more to get into it initially, but it's all taken care of for the life of the car. The total cost of ownership does go down over time. Or you can go in and buy the bare bones car minimum and you pay as you go. That's kind of like the wood versus synthetic deck argument, right?
Yeah.
It's still hard to compare the two because one, a domestic wood product like pine, cedar, all that, it's going to age day one. Whereas the inherent beauty of a synthetic deck board is no one's ever going to walk across and go, OMG, as my daughter says, this is the most gorgeous wood ever. They are going to go, wow, is this that fake wood? It looks really good. They're going to come back 10 years later and it looks exactly the same, right? So the inherent beauty in it is that it doesn't really age. So I take our clients through that, right? I tell them this, we may not be their builder, but I do promise them that when we part ways, they'll be more educated, right? I think it's our job to be as much of a consultant as it is a contractor and try to guide them in a direction that would make sense. And a lot of times for me, it's looking at their backyard as if it were mine. How would my wife and I exist in the backyard? How would our kids exist in the backyard? Sometimes I feel like that's the best way I can service them. So in doing that, I try to educate them on the deck boards and what makes sense for them.
What if you were using real wood, what is probably the best longevity wood if you're staying in it properly and doing the maintenance properly? Is there a particular okay.
Yeah. Are we talking topical like decking and real like the flats, right?
Yes, sir.
Always EPay. Okay. I mean, EPay, if you look at the Jenko report, they report the rigidity of wood, longevity of wood, all that. EPay's somewhere in the top 5 always. And this is all woods on the planet, right? Cedar and pine are like number 300, 405, right? But there's EPay's always like number 2 or number 3. So super dense, super hard. Like when we use it, it's stable, so it stays together. So it represents our carpentry the way it should. Where it's not coming apart, and later on you're like, man, what happened? They make a bad cut, and so that's always So EPay definitely takes that trophy.
Well, that's good because when we use real wood, it's EPay.
Yeah, well, it's we don't do a whole lot of decks, so it's just that we don't have the elevation that, and then the other thing is most wood it's coming a long ways to get to us, so there's that issue as well from a cost standpoint. But
we're usually using it as like a accent if we do use it.
Yeah, it's more of an aesthetic feature, than function. So today is a lot of your framing. Do you use steel or are you using wood? Or has that changed a lot over the last 25 years?
It has. We have not gone exclusively to steel. We have not gone exclusively to a composite frame, and there's both on the market.
Right.
We've used both, and it has its place. Our watertight system that we've been using since 1999, it allows our frame to stay completely dry and not see the UV sun, ever touch water. So we can still provide clients a wood frame that's going to last much longer than a wood frame that's exposed to the elements. So when we quote steel, when we quote composite frame, that's significantly more than a wood frame, as it should be. When clients ask me, is that additional cost worth it? And we start looking at it. That's one reason why we haven't gone all into the steel and the composite, because of our watertight system does protect our wood frame. But yeah, the steel options that are out there, there's a couple of them, and I'm sure there's a few more that are about to hit the market. There's a composite frame option out there. They've come a long way. And for anyone that's going to have what I call an exposed deck, one that allows water to run through the decking across the frame itself and either drip down or go into a catch system below that, then steel and composite frame is really the only way to go, because that's the only way that you're going to be able to offer your client something that's going to last, right? You've got a 50-year deck board that you're putting on a frame that, the gamble is if it's exposed to water and sunlight, then it's just not going to have the life expectancy that it used to. Back before January 1st of 2005, when the EPA mandated a pressure-treated switchover, right? They no longer allowed CCA to be embedded into wood. CCA standing for chromium, copper, arsenic. The day that happened was the day it changed the industry. So from 1997 to 05, we've never had any wood rot. It just doesn't happen. After 05, the EPA said, okay, we're gonna take a book out of the European Union's page, and we're gonna use what they're using, and it's had multiple variations over the years, but fast growth on the trees, chemical that's not as strong as it used to be, equates a recipe for disaster. So, you've got that type of pressure treated being provided as a substructure with a 40, 50-year deck board, and the frame's not going to last half that long.
Right.
So again, if you have a deck that's going to be exposed to the elements, steel, there's actually an aluminum product now that's a frame product, composite. Those alternative frames would be the way to go for sure.
So there's probably pros and cons. That's something you walk through with the customer, and also the cost variables, so they can come up with what's going to be best for them. Is that how it typically goes?
Yeah, exactly. Right. So my biggest fear as a contractor is a client telling me after we started their project, hey, John, I found out about product ABC. Why didn't you tell me about that? Like, that's the stuff that keeps me up at night. Like, right. Like, I want to make sure that, hey, let's talk about everything, Mr. Jones, Mrs. Jones. Let's look at alternative frame. Let's look at different deck board products. Let's look at different trim finishes. Let's look at cable rail versus aluminum rail. Let's look at, a paver patio versus something else. Whatever makes sense for their backyard. I want to try my best to explore it with them so they can make the best decision. Because it really, at the end of the day, and you know this, Mike, it's a collaboration, right? It's a collaboration with us and the client of getting them to where they want to get to with their backyard.
You just mentioned one of the things that I had on my list, which was railing. So that's got to be something also that's changed dramatically over the last 20 years. So
it has. Yeah.
What do you do the most of now?
Aluminum, black aluminum, textured black aluminum. It's one and done. Doesn't take any maintenance. It kind of dies into the landscape as you look through it.
Right.
From there, we get up into glass, we get up into cable rail. Both of those options are more expensive than just a straight black aluminum. We take the deck board that we're walking on and we put it on top of the rail to try to kind of marry the two in and soften it up. So there's a few tricks that we do to it to kind of, I don't even know that there ain't really tricks anymore, but I mean, just things that we do that kind of customize the rail a little bit. We don't just take it off the shelf and put it in place and call it done. But black aluminum is hands down our most popular rail.
Have y'all, because you mentioned glass, have you messed with the cracked glass panels? I've seen them on social media. They like crack the glass panels for the railing. You know what I'm talking about?
We have not.
Okay.
That is really, yeah, we have not.
Yeah, I haven't met anyone that has yet. It's so weird, but it's a trend. So
it's a little bit weird because you can't see through it, right? It kind of creates, it's a cool tempered look, but then it's like, well, you can't see through it. So it kind of takes away the whole reason for glass. But the glass today is crazy. Illuminated. There's a company that actually you can watch a movie on your glass handrail. You can watch Monday Night Football on your glass handrail. Right? It's come a long, long way.
That's awesome. That's pretty cool. I didn't know that you could watch a movie on it. I knew they had illuminated, but wow.
So the what's it called? Sphere in Vegas?
Yeah.
So it's the same kind of technology. I always thought looking at the Sphere, it was just all these TVs faced inward. Well, you can actually stand at the Sphere and look through it from an exterior point of view and look through the glass and look all the way through it, right? And it's like, wait a minute, if that's glass, how do they illuminate? So it's this whole illuminated glass thing. And so they brought that technology to glass handrail on decks. So it's not just handrail that gets illuminated from a color and a color standpoint, but it can actually have a picture projected inside it.
I didn't even realize it was glass. That's crazy. Because I've been to Vegas once and I thought it was just a bunch of like LED lights. That's wow. So
don't quote me on that. I could be wrong about that whole thing. I just know that in the conversation with the manufacturer, there was some conversation about that type of technology. So I don't know that the sphere is 100% glass. I just know that it's similar technology for what they're bringing to the table in the deck rail world.
Wow.
So y'all do pools now. I remember back when I worked in construction on a bunch of back end jobs. I saw they would do covers with wood decks, raised wood decks that would roll over the pool. My bad, I didn't mean to bump the mic. And then you could roll it back over to have an elevated deck by the pool. Did y'all have any experience with that?
We have designed that twice.
Okay.
And offered it to a client, and it didn't stick.
Okay.
But, you know, the thing about it is, it's kind of like a barn door, right? So if you have a 5.0 barn door, a 5 foot wide barn door that covers the 5 foot space, you've got to have 10 feet of room for that barn door to completely slide it, right? So you got your pool, and then the deck slides off of it. If your pool's, 18 by 36 or whatever, you got to have at least that enough room. So, would love to do it. Haven't done it yet.
Okay. I wasn't sure any like downsides of it. I'm sure they would use synthetic wood because obviously for most pool covers, it's the benefit of it is obviously like safety and stuff like that. But keeping your pool heated for longer, and so you have all that all that moisture underneath it. I'm sure that would deteriorate wood easy. So.
Yep. The pool covers that we've used so far over the years have been, your standard pool covers that come out from the coping, and put them on a drum and a vault, right?
Right. The safe space compared to the wood deck.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when a homeowner is looking for a professional to do a deck for them, how do they find somebody that does good work?
Yeah, that's another great question, Mike. The best advice I could give them, and I would hope that they do this, is go to the NADRA website, which is our association for deck builders. NADRA stands for North American Deck and Rail Association. And for about 20 years, the NADRA headquarters team have really done a good job putting together a collection of contractors around the country that are like-minded, do good work. That would be where I would urge a client to start, because it's tough. I mean, it's sometimes it's hard. I've said this to clients before. I don't envy their position, because it's you get one outfit that's quoting this way, and it doesn't make sense. You get somebody else quoting that way, and they're looking at it like so it's a tough. I'm certain it's a tough place to be in at times, but looking for a good deck builder to be NADRA.
Well, you add social media to that too. So you have the rise of all these people that utilize social media. Maybe they're not a great builder, but their social media platform looks amazing. So, yeah. Yeah,
man, that's a great point, Trey. I mean, social media, good, bad, or indifferent, it perception could be interesting, right? You could really perceive things to be better than they are. The flip side of that too. I was talking to a good friend of mine who travels the country for manufacturing. We were talking about the fact that there are a ton of good guys out there in the pool world and in the deck world and the outdoor living space that just don't get on social media, but they're still out there kicking tail and they do good work. Right. They're just kind of, you don't know about them as much because they're not on social media.
Yeah.
Not their thing. So Charlie Claffey is claimed that he's never been on Facebook, or he doesn't even know what Instagram is. So, but he's got people that do. So anyway, that helps his situation. But anyway, there's certainly people out there that do fabulous work that social media has nothing to do with them. Mm-hmm. So is NADRA provide training for people in the industry?
They do. Yeah, they have some classes, master deck classes, and there's networking that's strong. Leaning on different contractors inside the network, I think is a big plus for NADRA. But they do offer classes, and I know that's going to continue in the coming years to go a little deeper in their offering.
That's cool. So you're involved with the organization to some extent, right?
I am. I was lucky enough to be one of the guys in the beginning there to help start it, and 20 years later, it's still going strong. And I help out as often as I can. We've got an Atlanta chapter meeting coming up. Well, I should not call it chapter anymore. It's a national meeting, but it's happening in Atlanta. So instead of having chapters now, the meeting just kind of circles around the country. So that's coming up in February. But we're in the middle of working for a build right now. It's a partnership between NADRA and another charitable organization where we're able to provide a deck and a louvered roof system for a family that has a little 6-year-old that has a condition that she can't be in direct sunlight. So NADRA annually tries to do a deck for a soldier, where we give back to a soldier in need.
Right.
For us on this build, it's a little bit different, but NADRA is great. Yeah. Great organization.
Projects you're working on now, is there one that, you think that it encapsulates everything that you guys try to do as a company, or one that you've done recently that, kind of does that? If you could describe to us kind of what you did for a client.
Yeah. Yeah. The ones that really excite me is where we can kind of show off our talents in, again, the whole backyard. For us, our metric that we talk about on our Tuesday morning meetings, it's no longer numbers about, how big's the volume of the project and how, what's the square footage, what's the size. It's all about changing lives. So the metric that we look at every Tuesday is how many lives do we change this past week? And that came from a client that shared with me that we had changed the way their family lives in their property with the build that they had us build for them. And so I always like to, the jobs that get me excited are the ones that we can go in and do something kind of special, right? Where a client goes, I've talked to a few people and they say, this can't be built or whatever. And you guys know it. Contractors, there's a tendency sometimes for a contractor to give an opinion about what can or can't be built. And really, when you deduce it down to what it is, it's whether or not they want to build it or not, right? And so I think for us, it's providing something that always gets me inspired, right? Oh, somebody said it can't be done. I'll see you tomorrow at 9:00, right? Like, let's brainstorm and figure out how we're going to make this work. So we're on a few right now that allow us to do that, where we're going in and the pool is neglected and we're remodeling the pool. We're doing a new patio, full-blown kitchen, outdoor kitchen. We like to open up the windows and put in sliding glass doors so we can seamlessly tie in the indoors to the outdoors, and really try to create a space where they can exist and kind of change their lives, right? Again, nothing against the client. The client wants us to build a deck, and great, we'd love to do it. I get kind of excited about the ones these days that we can offer a lot more than that and really change that backyard and hopefully in turn change the client's lives and the family's lives and how they exist in that space.
Well, yeah, that goes back to, taking over the whole yard and giving it back to them. So that's awesome.
It does, yeah.
One thing, when I was looking at your social media, one of the first things that pops up is the elevated deck and be able to put the inserts into the brick instead of having the columns right next to the wall. Could you walk us through that process a little bit, or maybe just the pros of it or tricks or whatever?
Great question. I think it was 15 or 16, Georgia implemented, so say Georgia follows the IBC, International Building Code, and so they implemented a code that says, hey, no longer can a deck be attached to a home that's brick cladded and use the home as a point of support. Right, think table. You got this. If you look at the side of a deck, you've got the legs at the front of the deck. You got legs at the back of the deck, which is the house, and it's a freestanding deck, basically tight to the brick wall. Because apparently, somewhere the brick had failed when guys had tried to bolt the deck to the house and crank down on the nut and washer, and it tweaked the brick and everything. I've never seen that in 26 years, but apparently it happened somewhere. So the code changed. And so, for us, with an elevated deck, most of our clients want living space below. and sometimes brick at the house. If I'm standing underneath the deck, I walk out of the basement door, I'm under the deck. Posts at the house are okay. It's not a terrible deal. For houses that are cut up that have a lot of angles, every time the angle of the house changes, we've got to drop a post in there. So we worked with an engineer years ago who put together a brick bracket for a builder in the state of Georgia, and that evolved. And now Gary's got a bracket called the H7 bracket, and it allows us to cut a hole in the brick, insert this engineered bracket, bolt that to the framing of the house,
Right.
and then our deck sits in the flange of that bracket, and then we flash around the bracket. So we basically void the brick. That way we can offer our clients a space below their deck that when they turn around and look at their house wall, they don't see vertical posts supporting the deck. So doesn't have to happen with a sided house, and we can work around it with stucco houses, but brick, it's a real good offering so that we can have a clean house wall there with no posts.
That bracket, is it more supportive than the old style? Because now it's not just sitting on top of the brick, but it's also bolted into the house.
Yeah, in the old days, we'd take three, it depends, 2x6s or even 2x10, and we'd stack it out 3-ply. And this is pre-brick, right? And then we'd bolt the ledger through those 3 2x. And so when the masons came up, they would brick the house, but they can brick behind our ledger board, right? Because it packed it out a little bit. So that was how it used to be. No longer was that allowed. And really for us, we get into a house after it's been purchased, right? After people are living in it. We're not getting in pre-brick. So much stronger. Have all the engineer reports on them, right? So checks a really big box.
When you're designing a deck like that that's elevated, I'm just curious, how do you calculate, like, okay, this wall right here can hold this much of this deck? 'Cause it's like 50% of the deck, right? So how do you get that information? I'm just curious.
So we work with engineers. So we've got an engineer that we've worked with for 16 years now, and he stamps all of our plans, right? So when we go to get a permit, which Georgia's pretty strict with the permitting process, all of our construction drawings are stamped by a structural engineer, right? So all of that's taken into account pre-permit. So.
Do they plan for snow loads like last week that some people got?
Very little snow loads, but we had there was some parts of Atlanta that had 6 inches, which is just a rarity around here.
Oh yeah.
Good grief.
Crazy.
Did you guys get any?
Yeah.
We got the storm before that last storm that came through. It went south of us. Houston got it. We didn't get anything. But Houston had snow, but they claim they'll rebuild and they'll be better.
It's great. My wife's she grew up in the Panhandle area, and down by Pensacola, Perdido Key area. They got 6 inches. Like she was saying, she could never remember that in her life. Yeah, it's very crazy.
Yeah, with all this elevation, you guys must build a lot of stairs. And
a lot of stairs.
How do you construct stairs? Are they wood framed, or are they metal, or are they combined? Is it just like the framing of the deck? Is that kind of connected? How's that work?
Yep. So in 26 years, Mike, I can't remember too many people that ever went on a project and were like, oh my gosh, those are the amazing stairs. Like, stairs are a utilitarian thing. They get you from point A to point B. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't build beautiful stairs, but that's not typically ever an item that someone looks at and goes, man, and they overlook everything else. So stairs are an interesting one, right? Obviously we have an 8-inch rise is the most we can do on exterior stairs on a traditional set of stairs. So if we've got a 120-inch drop from deck down, we've got 17 stairs, and that takes up a lot of real estate. So my favorite are spiral staircases. I love when we are able to drop in aluminum spiral staircase with a big 8-foot diameter, allows 4-foot wide treads where the client can walk around them and really feel comfortable getting from point A to point B, and they don't kill a lot of room real estate wise in the backyard. But I haven't looked at it recently, but I think spirals are probably, they're not quite half of our builds. They're a little less than half our builds, but they're close. So traditional stairs, we match the deck. So let's say the deck's going to have a gray manufactured composite deck board. The stairs have the same thing, handrail, it all matches, right? And when the stringers we cut them out of 2x12 pressure treated pine, coat them with a acrylic tape that tries to protect it, give it some protection from the weather. But stairs are kind of a necessary evil a lot of times, to get you up from up 10 feet up in the air down to the patio.
Yeah. So is maintenance on wood, is that something that's I mean, do you guys do maintenance later, or is that something that I mean, staining and all that type of stuff? Do you get into that?
That used to be a big part of our business. Very, very little anymore. You won't see any of our builds having exposed wood unless it's epay, unless it's a hardwood, a deck board or something like that, right? Some of our clients, even on those, are okay with the silver patina where we don't put the oil on,
Right.
and it just grays out, But if it's, for example, our stringers, you don't stand next to our stairs and see the pressure treated stringer. It's capped with a PVC, taped first, capped with the PVC, trim second, and then we paint the trim of the PVC to match the trim color of the house, so it kind of all gels together. So, in today's world, we're looking at composite decking, PVC trim, aluminum handrail. There's really very little to maintain,
Gotcha.
unless, of course, they've chosen a wood deck board, like an epay.
Okay. So most people are rather have low maintenance than work on their deck later on.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I haven't met too many. They're like, you know what, John, build us something that takes a ton of maintenance. Where do we sign up for that? Right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I haven't met too many of those.
No, not many. So the decks seem like it's something that all kinds of people think they can do themselves. I mean, so they run into, hey, I can go build this, I know how to hammer some nails and that kind of thing. But it seems like, decks have become a lot more complex than they used to be. Do you still see a lot of people trying to do it themselves, or is it, I mean, when you do designs, you're not designing anything for homeowners to build, I would assume.
No, I mean, occasionally we'll get some clients from out of state that are looking for a design that they're then going to have their contractor build. When we were offering a different build years ago, smaller decks, things like that, 20 years ago, one of our competitors would be a DIYer, a gentleman that was like, hey, I can build this myself, because back then we were offering a project that was, smaller in size and scope. So I know that I call them the 49ers. Apparently in our industry, 49% of all decks being built, and by the way, there's 33 million decks that come up for renewal to be built every year in the United States.
Oh, wow.
And where that number comes from is decks that are over 25 years old.
Wow.
So 49% of those decks that are actually being built, doesn't mean 33 million of them are rebuilt every year, but of the ones that are, 49% is the last statistic I heard that is being built by DIYers. 51% are by licensed contractors like ourselves that people are hiring. So we understand that the 49ers, as I call them, the 49% out there, they that's a different animal, right?
Right.
Nothing wrong with it, but you're not comparing apples to apples, right? The projects that we involve ourselves in, they're engineered decks, right? They're decks that you walk out underneath, and line of sight is a real important thing for me. So when you come out of the basement, your line of sight into your backyard, you don't want to look at a small forest. So we may have a post, and then we're working on right now, we have a post, and 27 feet later over here, we have another post, right? And so we have a steel W1235 beam that's holding up that deck, and that deck's cantilevering over that beam. So obviously the projects that we're putting our name on, it'd be very difficult for a DIYer to come in and take that on. But I do understand that that's still a big part of the marketplace that's out there.
outdoor lighting seems to create a whole nother sense of space and how people use the space. Is that a component of what y'all do as well?
It is. It is. It's a big part of it. Lighting is, gosh, it can add so much value to a build, whether it's literally looking through the window out to your backyard that you're currently not using, but you can stand there and appreciate it because it's illuminated. It's casting shadows. It's washing light. It's illuminating pathways, steps, and it takes on a whole new look right after the sun goes down. So big part of our builds, lighting.
I'm wondering, you mentioned moisture and hover earlier. Is there any like new technologies or maybe techniques that y'all been using in the last couple of years that have really benefited?
Trey wants to know because he has to measure the house.
Well, not just actually just moisture and hover, but anything else in particular?
Just kidding.
Yeah, I know.
Those are the ones that we've landed on, Trey. So there's communication ones for us, like we use Company Cam and some other things. We use Job Trade as our so technology wise in terms of managing the job and staying on top of communication through photos and things like that.
Yeah.
But the two big ones for us site wise is hover and moisture. Yeah.
Awesome.
So one of the things we ask people about is if they've seen something that happened to a client that you felt like it was what we call a true crime.
Yes.
Is there a project that you've seen that, people were either misrepresented about what should have happened or any way, something you could help homeowners look at and understand, don't get caught like this?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's actually how we got into building pools.
Okay.
So back in 2018, we were on a project that was a large project. We were doing a deck. We had a patio, kitchen, walls. The pool contractor had started excavate the pool in the location of the pool and realized, I guess, that the soil was inadequate. So I was brought in about a week later after a conversation went back and forth between the homeowner and the contractor. And I guess the contractor was in some form or fashion trying to continue with the pool build without addressing the soil. We ended up putting 40 helical piers below that pool, 12-inch slab of concrete before the pool was even built. It was on a pretty steep incline. It was amazing to me that this gentleman was actually wanting to move forward with the build without what was actually necessary to be built in the back. So when the client came to me and said, "Hey, can you run with this?" I had to, I had to kind of look back at my relationships in the industry. Brought in a crew that could finish the dig, set the cage, do some rough plumbing, and then had our plumbers, and electricians go from there, and our masons and all that. So subbed out the shotcrete and all that. But yeah, so I could probably sit here and go hours and hours with story after story. Gosh, it's sad, right? Like sometimes I wonder what made the client decide to hire the contractor that they've hired, right? Oh, well, so-and-so told me and we play tennis together. So, and I'm just like, I'm just blown away because you take a really smart individual that does a really good job in their bubble of the world, right? They're successful in what they do. And then there's just this little bit of a lapse of decision-making when it comes to hiring a contractor because one friend or semi-friend said so-and-so. So yeah, it's interesting to me how that I remember another project where we were brought into it after it started to be built, and it was a watertight deck that was going over a large section of living space. There was an addition to the house, and a big tile deck was going up top. And the way that this frame was set, I mean, everything was inferior. The span charts were off. We had to tear the whole thing down. They had told the homeowner that a permit was pulled, find out it wasn't pulled. I mean, just like stuff that makes you scratch your head. Like, well, I don't even understand. Like, how do they actually think they were going to get there? literally going forward without a permit, right? And building everything completely wrong. So I'm sure we could trade war stories there, right? Like just stuff that makes you shake your head and scratch your head.
Yeah. I think sometimes people get in a hurry and they just trust one person and they don't do any research on, the skills and capabilities or certifications that people have, and so they just assume, worked for one person, it will work for somebody else. So anyway, yeah. And sometimes,
Yeah, that's a good point, Mike. We can't fault ourselves and our clients for wanting to actually believe what someone says, right?
right.
I mean, you see the good in someone, you're like, oh, they said that it worked out well. It's got to work out for me. So yeah.
The other thing that I
Like-
have clients that always hope for is that they hope they get a deal. And I always tell people, when's the last time that deal worked out for you really well? It's just, but people do it all the time.
The deal is the project gets built, it gets built right, it's beautiful. It stays semi on budget, it stays semi on schedule, and you're using it for decades to come, right?
Right.
Creating memories. There's the deal.
Yeah. The deal is that you don't have to come back to me and get it remodeled. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And when you call, we hope it's to say, hey, right? And we'll answer the phone when you do call.
Yes, sir. So, any exciting conferences or travel that you all will be doing? I mean, do you guys do continuing education every year, or?
Yeah, so we've got IBS coming up at the end of February, which is International Builder Show. That's always a fun one for me. JLC Live is later in Providence, later in the year. Those are fun. IBS is a fun one because I get to kind of nerd out and walk around and see what's new. And that show is massive, right? But it's everything construction. If it can be associated with the house, it's there. I saw you at the Deck and Pool Expo, right? A couple
Yes,
months
sir.
ago. We'll do that again in October. Looking forward to that. And looking forward to getting this strange January settled in with some good weather and try to get to some of the projects we've got on the board.
So I understand that you guys have won a lot of design awards.
We have, we actually created, Rob and I, some years ago when we realized that part of our projects and our offering, as our offering rose in project cost and project ability of what we can do for the client, we realized what the design aspect for us was doing. And so we actually created 33 North, which is it's the latitude location of our office here, but it's the ability to give back to our industry and white label some designs for other guys around the country, helping them with their design work. We feel pretty good about our design. Rob does a phenomenal job. Our design game's pretty strong. I'll say that, and we're able to paint pictures for our clients that really do allow them to envision what's going to happen. And we've won some awards for that over the years, and we're proud of that.
So is there a place that homeowners can go see the projects like, that have those awards to get inspiration?
Yeah, so they can come here to our office if they're local, right? And we can take them through our showroom. We've got everything from waterline tile to cable handrail to spiral staircase to fireplaces to things like that, patio work, and our showroom's always evolving. But we try to bring them here to show them their design that we created for them, pick out some product. We do have our awards hanging on the wall, and most of our clients are happy to show off their projects. So I say this all the time, our best closer is a past client that allows us to bring a future client to the property and walk them around and show them. Sometimes future clients have that time to invest into it, and sometimes they don't. So we like to offer that though.
So do you guys, how far a radius do you do around Atlanta?
Yeah, so we're in the northwest quadrant of the metro area of Atlanta, but now metro is up to Chattanooga, Tennessee, right? So, you know, we've got we run a territory that recently going from one project to another, Lake Lanier over to Vinings, you know, an hour and a half between jobs, right? Doesn't always land that way. You know, sometimes our jobs are 20 minutes apart from each other, but we try to stay in a you know, somewhere between 35 and 50-mile radius of our office.
Okay.
Doesn't always work. We have tools. We'll travel if the job you know, calls for it, but we try to stay in that area we can service them best.
So I'm just out of curiosity. My dad did a lot of woodwork. He did a lot of timber framing. Do you guys ever get into that type of structural work, or is it
not as much as we'd like to? But you know, big you know, rough sawn timber is a great look, and we love when we get a client that's willing to go all in with that, because as you know, it's not you know, it's not for the faint at heart at times, you know, because you know, that type of, what I love about that type of carpentry is the framing becomes the finish work.
Right.
Right. So what you're looking at and what is structural is all one and the same. And so, you know, it's got that real craftsman style build all wrapped up in it. And so you've got to have the right client, you know, that's willing to go into that, because it can be more expensive than just regular stick built.
Oh yeah, most definitely. Well, look, the cool thing, he worked specifically on barns, and worked in Western Pennsylvania and Eastern Ohio, and the stuff that he was working on was mostly constructed 100 years earlier, and was all hand hewn timbers and stuff like that he was replacing. And you know, his joke for a long time was, man, I don't know how many hundreds of square board feet that we burned of all that barn wood when we were taking it out. Sure wished we had found a place and stored it all. But anyway, yeah, it's beautiful stuff. So
yeah.
Are there other suggestions that you would have for a homeowner that's going in a journey, that's looking at specifically decks that they should consider in their journey if they're not in Atlanta? If they're in Atlanta, they should just come see you, right? But
we hope you at least give us a call.
Yeah,
we'd like to meet you. You know, coast to coast, right? Everything is regional, as we talked about. I think if I were a client, if I could give a client some advice, it would be, take your time to do the due diligence on who you're going to hire. And I know that's kind of cliche-ish, but what I mean by that is, go ahead and be intentional with your decision that you're going to take the time to find what's good for you and your family. Because you can't just take it back to Home Depot with a receipt. You can't just take it back to Best Buy, or, you know, it's not a refrigerator that you can return. Once you get into that build, good, bad, or indifferent, you're in it, right? Like, so
you're married.
You're married. It's a marriage, right?
Yes,
sir. I mean, you know, we try to make friends with all of our clients, and sometimes that works well, but we're in their backyard for you know, a significant amount of time. So I would just urge them to start early, right? Like if my family had a goal of, hey, in 2026, you know, we want to do some stuff in our backyard, then I would start in January of 2025. Right. I would start now. I would start to ask friends and neighbors and your tennis buddy, your golf buddy, the guy at church, the guy at the water cooler, the girl in your bunco group, whatever. Just start getting that conversation going. Get on some of the chat rooms in your local area and see what people are saying. And, you know, where you don't have to feel rushed. I think what people do is, in this Amazonian world that we have. They think we're just going to pick up our phone, we're going to pick up our computer, and we're going to find options, and it's going to be right there in front of us, and we just got to decide. And it's just not like that when you are finding a marriage to go into with a contractor, right? So that would be my first and big suggestion is take the time to do your due diligence to find the right contractor for you and your family.
That's a great tip.
Oh yeah, I have a couple questions still.
Yeah,
if it's cool to run by.
Yeah.
So I do wonder, when you did expand, and you started doing more stuff, and you started taking over the whole project in the backyard, what was like the trickiest, I guess, trade when y'all were evolving?
Yeah, that's a good question. All of them.
you got to get the right people, right?
Yeah.
You got to get the right people, right? Certainly working with the right subs, the right crews, the right guys that actually give a crap, right? The right guys and girls that actually care about what they're doing. Some of the things I think, Trey, the challenge for homeowners is understanding, because as design build guys, depending on the approach, typically there can be creep in a project, right? Projects of this size can have what I call creep, where you've got a budget for the sink and the water line and the gas to the two different fire pits and the fireplace. But those kind of things can creep because something else could be added, right? Torches with gas. The electrical that has 8 fans and 2 cans could turn into 12 cans and 4 fans. And so there's, I think, to answer your question, probably the thing that I had to get my hands wrapped around early was making sure that our parameters were set for our clients and we were setting expectation levels where they needed to be.
Yeah.
Because you guys know, sometimes you get in and all of a sudden you look at the electrical and the panel won't take, what we're trying to add. So now all of a sudden we got to add a sub panel, and there's creep, right? And so making sure that we were as direct early and often with our clients helped. One of the things that we learned the hard way that helped us, and we feel like we do a pretty good job with it now, is we bring all of our trades together in the beginning to have our pre-con walk meeting, right? So we can all talk about what's expected of each of us, so that we can come together, because we're going to have some overlap.
Yeah.
Right. And I feel like that's where we can add there's some value add for us for a client, is that that conversation is very detailed, and I don't have to sit and listen to someone go, "Hey man, I'm on board, but I can't be here for 6 weeks." No, that's not going to work. You're going to be here in 3 weeks, right? Because we work together on every project, and you're going to dig the trench, and you're going to lay that 3 weeks from now, because that's the schedule, right? So being able to own our schedule, because we are a group that continues to work together project after project, I think allows us to offer the client something that's beneficial. So to answer your question, I think for me, it wasn't necessarily a trade. It was bringing them all together so that we can set that expectation where it needs to be for the homeowner, for the client.
Phenomenal. And then the other question doesn't really correlate, but I had it. I just didn't know where to fit it in. Because last couple podcasts, it's January, so everyone's talking about health and wellness. I talked about, a situation where you drop in the hot tub, like in a wood deck or something like that. I'm wondering, have y'all done that before? Is there any pros or cons to that situation? And also, it got brought up because we were talking about cold plunges, and I was wondering if that was even possible with the same style.
The wellness thing is a big one right now, right?
Yeah.
We've got a lot of designs going out. We've had a few builds in 2024 that included saunas and cold plunges. For years, we put hot tubs inside decks. Matter of fact, I think our third deck we ever built back in '98 was a hot tub deck. So it started many years ago. But the wellness idea is probably the fancy word trending. Mike knows this, but we talked about it in Dallas. But the biophilic bend of outdoor living is alive and well, right? It really is, and I think which is a great thing. I think people are understanding the importance of being outside, whether that's from 2020, 2021, whether that's from whatever. It's permeating through our industry, and it's beautiful to see. Right. Getting people outside in nature, this research shows, as little as 20 minutes outside raises serotonin and lowers blood pressure. Right. And so that wellness side of things, whether it's a hot tub, whether it's a cold plunge in a sauna, whether it's, the line of sight through the window so that everything has, symmetry in the backyard, whether it's fractal patterns that are offered in the patio, whatever it is, just getting your client outside is it's always been there. I think for now we're just, recently in the last few years, we're realizing just how very important it is. Where in years past, I would have clients go, "Hey, John, we're either going to spend money on our man cave basement, or we're going to do something in the outdoor space." And we're leaning towards the outdoor space because we know that adds a lot of value to be outside, right? Like they're actually, when clients said, "Hey, John, you guys built our happy place." I had a Joe Raboyne mentioned to me on a podcast. He introduced me to the biophilic movement and said, what your client's telling you is their body reacts different to the space that you guys have built them outside, right? And so, so much of the biophilic movement on interior architecture is trying to bring the outdoors in. We don't have to do that. We just literally need to get our clients outside.
Yep.
We have everything that they try to do with biophilic design. We just have to have a place to put them. We just have to create the platform that they can sit and take it all in. The water, the trees, the air. I mean, all the things that are out there. Yeah, we've done a couple articles and podcasts on that. So yeah, it's huge.
You know it well, Mike. You've been doing it for years. It's I've always been very impressed by the projects that you design and you guys build, and you've known this for a long time. I think it's amazing that even one of the number one things that new homeowners are asking, according to Zillow, still to this day, are outdoor living space. Right? What's they're comparing comps. 5-bedroom, 4-bath, has a basement, great kitchen, no backyard. 5-bedroom, 4-bath, has a basement, great kitchen. Oh wow, there's outdoor living. Now all of a sudden that house pops up, higher in their importance as they look to buy. So even at the real estate level, we've designed for some real estate agents locally what the prospective home that they're selling, what the backyard could look like, so that when the future buyer comes in and says, "Oh, this backyard's not where I want it," the real estate agents can say, "It's not, but here's what it could be."
Yeah.
And they look at it and go, "Wow, this is this exact house. Yes, this design was put together for this home. This is what your backyard could look like." So, you know it. You know it well. You've been doing it for years.
It's funny that he says Zillow, because one of the big categories to filter things is square footage for houses, but they don't account the backyard, and it's such livable square footage.
I bet that's changing. So, because
100%. That's a great point. I remember talking to someone about that appraiser years ago.
Mm-hmm.
He said, "Well, it's because it's not heated and cooled, so we can't count it as square footage." It's like, okay, so, but we can still exist outside, and actually that adds a ton of value. Yeah, so I agree, Mike. It's got to work into the equation eventually at some point, right?
Well, it's so many homeowners today are demanding it. So they want, and I tell people all the time, they're like, "Well, the investment says I'm only going to get 50 cents on the dollar for a swimming pool." And I said, "Yeah, that's if you build a basic plain Jane swimming pool, yeah, that's what you're going to get. Now, if you build a resort in the backyard, I guarantee you'll get every dollar you put into it, because there's the next person that comes in here is going to go, wow." And I don't know how many times I've had people say our house sold because of the backyard. Somebody walked in, they saw it, they've seen 6 other houses, but they walked in, they're like, wow, that's an amazing space. And that doubles, like you're saying, it doubles our square footage of living space because we can live out here. This is not just a cement pond with 3 feet of concrete around it. This is an environment. This is a setting. This is an oasis resort, whatever you want to call it. Now you've got a space that, we can enjoy and love. So, but yeah, the wellness aspect of it is certainly a huge part of it now. I don't think that trend's going to go away. I think it's just going to get bigger and bigger.
I do too.
So you got other questions, Trey?
Not on topic, no.
Oh, well, go to your standard,
Yeah, I usually ask 3 random questions just to get to know the person a little bit better. Like, for instance, what's your favorite book or movie or meal?
Oh, and place to go.
Place to go
Travel.
as well, yes.
Book, movie, meal, place to go. Book would probably be, I don't know about my favorite, but one of my favorite, and I just recently read it, was Dan Martell's book, Buy Back Your Time. Really, really good book. Opened my eyes to a lot. There's a lot of good books. That one is at the top of my list right now. Favorite movie. My son would probably kill me if I didn't say Top Gun Maverick. We've watched it a handful of times. Probably Top Gun original would probably be one of my favorite. Food. Gosh, I'm a sucker for a really good brick oven pizza. Thin crust, extra cheese. But favorite place. This is probably going to sound corny, but really anywhere with my family. I love spending time outside, fishing, hunting, camping with my family. Just being around them reminds me of what life's about. So somewhere with them would be it.
Perfect.
Not going to be too picky.
So do you have a pizza oven in an outdoor kitchen personally?
No, I have a Kamado Joe, which is like a green egg, right? So we've cooked plenty of pizzas in that.
It's red.
I don't have
just red instead of green.
Yeah, mine's black. It was when they were making the black ones. They're here in Atlanta, a lot like the headquarters of Big Green Egg is, and Primo, and all of them. But so we were able to get a black one. So that's a little different. But yeah, we've cooked we cooked a bunch of pizzas in there. I do not have a true brick oven.
Okay, well, we all have dreams, right?
Room to improve. Room to improve.
Yeah, those are trending right now. They've been trending.
They really are.
Yeah.
They really are.
The pizza ovens.
Oh, I was going to say Kamado Joe's or
those
Big Green
been
Eggs.
trending for a while.
Yeah. So, well, I greatly appreciate you coming on with us today.
Thank you.
Man, I'm honored. I'm honored to be on this with you guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah. And the outdoor living, luxury outdoor living, I think is a huge space that is only going to get bigger and better with people like you and the products that you guys offer, the detail that you do with design. And anyway, so sometimes when we're in Georgia, we'll have to come visit. So we were
please do. Mike, I got to tell you, you've been an inspiration. There's been times that I've looked at your page to get inspiration on a design, and so I greatly thank you for the words that you're sharing. I think that as contractors, if we keep trying to push that envelope, offer our clients the best we can, while keeping our eye on what's creative, right, and what allows them to have some really cool spaces, then maybe we'll do something and continue to do something pretty good. And I agree. This industry, I love to see the younger generation come up. I trade like you. I love to see this come through, and hopefully the older guys like myself and Mike, we can share some of our war stories and help the next generation service a future client.
Yeah, 100% on that.
Oh yeah.
So you have someone that in your family that works at the company?
No, well, I have my father works when he retired. He came on board and pulls all of our permits. keeps us compliant there, does a real good job. Years ago, my wife worked in the business. We decided we either stay working together or stay married, one or the other. We chose marriage. Um, she, so she is raising our kids and
That's a job.
and
Oh yeah.
yeah, it's a
Full-time.
job. It sure is. So no, I don't. My son maybe one day would possibly be in the business, but he's got many. He's about to be 12, so a lot of time there. So,
Well,
but my father does work in the company.
well, lots of fishing and hunting with him. Your son, so that could be a lot of fun till he's ready to start working. So anyway,
Yes.
I do want to say what's interesting about this industry in general. There's a lot of I know I've heard stories from you and other people about the people that were older, and but and maybe the experience being negative. But from all I've seen from going to these events and these shows, the older generation is pouring into the next generation, and I think that's a reason why it's going to keep on getting bigger and bigger and better. So
Yeah.
I just want to say my thanks to both of y'all.
Oh man, that's awesome. I think that's the least we can do, right, Mike? I mean, but if we're not careful, we're going to wake up one day and there's going to be a generation of guys and girls that don't know how to do the things that they need to do. So I think it's our duty and our honor to do that, right?
most definitely. And though I would say everybody doesn't realize, I mean, when we were growing up, we were supposed to go to college and, become a doctor or a lawyer or something like that. And
Yeah.
the trades weren't held in very high esteem.
No.
And I think that is totally changing. That the youth realize that, hey man, the trades are something that's great. What I can go out here and build, and I can have a great career. And I think that's turned the corner, which is a good thing because our country's going to need it.
Yes.
Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah.
Well said.
So, well, good luck with your basketball game tonight.
Baseball.
Baseball. Okay. Baseball. Well, have a great season with that. And we'll see you, if not before, in October, and I guess in Vegas.
Yep. In Vegas. Guys, thank you. It was an honor. Appreciate it.
Likewise.
I'll talk
Likewise.
to you later.
Okay.
See ya.
Take care. John with South Deck is a true professional. He does some amazing stuff for the industry. So where I first met him was at the International Pool Show and Deck Convention are tied together now. And
Yeah.
so he was,
This year or last year?
this was in November. He was
Okay.
on a panel and he's talking, and he asked me a question from the panel. He's like, Mike, what do you think about this? How do you guys handle, the biophylitic design and aspects incorporated in your projects? And I was like, well, first of all, I was shocked that he knew I was. And second, most panels don't ask someone in the audience a question. But anyway, so then I dove into his company, and they do some amazing work. I mean, I couldn't even imagine how to design some of the stuff that they do, which is really crazy there. All the
Mhm.
different levels and, seating spaces and structures and what we talk about how we have, I think I'm pretty good at dealing with elevation.
Oh yeah.
But-
But he was talking about 100. Well, we deal with 100 inches, but yeah, that's a lot.
He said he had a project that's 42 feet.
Yeah, 42 feet's a lot.
Is I don't have anything that's got that kind of fall on it. So, but I thought when I had one that had 25 feet, that was huge. So I mean,
Yeah.
40 feet's another 50%. So anyway, amazing work, and he really does give back a lot to the industry, and what he's helped create for the deck industry is really cool.
Oh yeah. So from that podcast, what do you think was the most interesting thing to you?
The interesting thing that I got from it is that they do a lot of real wood.
Yeah.
I was kind of surprised at the amount of real wood that they used, and they're using a lot of e-pay.
That makes sense.
That's a very hard wood to work with, and,
Yes.
and dense. I mean, so they probably have a lot of tricks that we don't know on how to work with it. So
Yeah, which what I took away from it, there was a lot, but I mean, the first thing I saw on a social media when I looked at it was those brackets, them putting the elevated deck on, and him just walking through that whole process was really interesting. But there's a lot that I could take away from. So take away from this conversation.
And it was he was limited from a time standpoint.
Yeah.
So I would have loved to have got into some more of the material selections and, what kind of composite that he really likes and stuff like that. So, maybe another round in the future to get some more information. But definitely check out his social media and website if you're into decks.
At South Decks.
At South Decks. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, I think that's going to be it for today.
Y'all have a good one.
Good year. Bye.